Have you ever stopped to think about why you always end up getting involved with the same toxic people? Why no matter how many times you swear that this time will be different, you always end up in the same place, drained, confused, and wondering how the hell you got there again? The answer will shock you, and no, it's not bad luck. It's not because there are no good people in the world, and it's definitely not because you deserve to be treated badly. The truth is much deeper, and at the same time, much simpler than you imagine. There's an invisible pattern operating in your life right now, an emotional magnet that you carry without even realizing it, attracting exactly the type of person you should avoid most. Wayne Dyer used to say that we change our life when we change our mind. But what he discovered through decades of helping people is that there's something even more fundamental happening. Something formed when you were just a child. Something that determines not only who you attract, but why you feel so comfortable with people who should make all your internal alarms go off. In the next few minutes, you'll understand exactly how this mechanism works. More importantly, you'll discover how to break this pattern once and for all. Because the truth is this: you're not doomed to repeat the same mistakes forever. But first, you need to face a reality that might be painful. Close your eyes for a moment and come with me on a journey. You're 5 years old. It's nighttime. You're in your bed, and you hear raised voices coming from the living room. Your stomach tightens. You know that sound. You know that when Daddy talks in that tone, Mommy will be quiet for days. Or maybe it's the opposite. Mommy screaming, Daddy disappearing. In that moment, your child's brain makes a decision that will affect the rest of your life. It decides that love is unpredictable, that to receive attention, you need to walk on eggshells, that your emotional security depends on being able to read other people's moods and adapt to them. Wayne Dyer discovered something revolutionary in his studies. We don't choose our partners based on who they are, but rather based on how we feel around them. And how we feel around them is directly connected to how we felt around our first caregivers. If you grew up in a house where love was conditional, where you were loved when you behaved well, but ignored when you didn't meet expectations, you developed what psychologists call anxious attachment. You learned that you need to work hard to be worthy of love. Now fast forward to your adult life. You meet someone who in the beginning gives you all the attention in the world, makes you feel special, unique, like you're the most important person on the planet. Your heart races. You think, finally I found someone who truly sees me. But then this person starts alternating between moments of intense affection and periods of inexplicable coldness. And you know what happens? Instead of running away, you feel familiar. Your nervous system recognizes this pattern. It's like coming home. The problem is that this home is toxic. By the way, I'd love to know where you're watching this video from. Leave your city in the comments. I want to see how many people across America are discovering this truth today. But this is just the beginning. Because there's another type of pattern that's even more destructive, and you need to know if this is what's controlling your life. I'm going to tell you something that will mess with your certainties. You might be literally addicted to narcissistic people, and yes, it's a real addiction with withdrawal symptoms and everything. Here's how it works. When you're in a relationship with someone narcissistic, your brain lives on a constant emotional roller coaster. One day you're on top of the world. They treat you like a god, make you feel like the most important person in the world. The next day, you're in hell. They ignore you, criticize you, make you question your own sanity. This alternation between extreme pleasure and pain releases a chemical bomb in your brain. Dopamine, noradrenaline, cortisol. It's like a cocktail of natural drugs. And your brain starts to associate this chaos with passion, this instability with intensity. Wayne Dyer observed something fascinating. People who live in calm and stable relationships often complain that they lack emotion. They confuse peace with boredom because they've become accustomed to equating love with suffering. Let me give you a concrete example. Sarah, 34 years old, sought help because she was in her third toxic relationship in a row. They all started wonderfully and ended in disaster. When I asked about her childhood, she told me about her alcoholic father, who alternated between being the most loving father in the world and the cruelest man she knew. I never knew which version of him would come home, she told me. So I was always alert, trying to figure out clues about his mood from the sound of his footsteps, from the way he closed the door. Now at 34, Sarah felt attracted exactly to unpredictable men. When she met someone kind and consistent, her brain interpreted this as boring. She needed the adrenaline of uncertainty to feel alive. But here's what's most shocking. Sarah wasn't consciously choosing narcissistic men. She was simply following the impulses of her nervous system, which had been programmed in childhood to associate love with chaos. Does this sound familiar to you? Have you ever wondered why normal and stable people seem boring, while you feel magnetically attracted to complicated people full of personality? If so, you need to understand what comes next, because there's a second form of attachment that's even more dangerous. Maybe you're the opposite type. Maybe you grew up learning that depending emotionally on someone is dangerous, that it's better not to need anyone, because people always disappoint. If this is your case, you probably developed what we call avoidant attachment. And here's the cruel irony. People with avoidant attachment also end up attracting narcissists, but for completely different reasons. Think about it this way. You meet someone who seems super independent, confident, who doesn't need anyone. You immediately identify. Finally, someone who understands that relationships should be about two complete people complementing each other, not about neediness, right? Wrong. What you don't realize is that this person isn't emotionally independent. They're emotionally unavailable. There's a huge difference. A truly independent person can connect deeply when they choose to. An emotionally unavailable person uses independence as a shield to avoid having to deal with vulnerability. Dyer used to talk about the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is the emptiness you feel when you're alone because you run from intimacy. Solitude is the peace you feel when you choose to be with yourself because you love yourself. Let me give you an example. Michael, a 42-year-old engineer, always prided himself on being self-sufficient. He felt attracted to women who also seemed not to need him. Independent, career-focused, a bit distant. No drama, he would say. The problem is that these women were as emotionally blocked as he was. Michael's relationships were superficial, beautiful on the outside, but empty inside. There were never deep conversations, never true emotional intimacy. And you know what happened? After a while, he or his partner would start feeling lonely even while being together. Then the cheating would begin, the fights, the mind games. Because when two people avoid intimacy, the only way to feel something intense is through conflict. Michael was attracting narcissistic women not because they were needy, but because they were equally incapable of genuine connection. The difference is that they used manipulation and drama to fill the void, while he used work and distancing. But the wound behind it was the same. Both had learned in childhood that love was dangerous. Now you're starting to see the pattern? Are you noticing how your rational choices might be being dictated by unconscious programming? Because what comes next will show exactly how to break this cycle. There's a moment in the life of every person who continues attracting narcissists when everything changes. It's the moment when they stop asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" and start asking, "What in me is allowing this to happen?" Dyer called this the awakening of personal responsibility. It's not about blaming yourself. It's about recognizing your power to change the pattern. I saw this happen with Jessica, 28 years old. After 3 abusive relationships in a row, she came to my office saying, "I think all men are narcissists." Boom! When we started investigating more deeply, we discovered something interesting. Jessica had grown up with a mother who alternated between being super protective and completely absent. When the mother was present, she suffocated Jessica with excessive care. When she was absent, which happened frequently due to work, she left Jessica feeling abandoned. Result, Jessica learned that love is either intense or non-existent. She didn't know the middle ground. For her, if a relationship wasn't an emotional roller coaster, it meant the person didn't really care. Jessica's turning point happened when she met David, a gentle, stable, and consistent man. He showed genuine interest, was caring without being possessive, respected her boundaries. He was, in all aspects, the man she said she wanted. But Jessica felt bored. "He's too nice," she told me. "I don't feel butterflies in my stomach." That's when she understood. The butterflies she interpreted as passion were actually anxiety. Her body was addicted to cortisol and adrenaline. She had conditioned her nervous system to associate love with stress. The discovery was shocking and liberating at the same time. Jessica realized it wasn't a matter of good men not existing. She literally couldn't recognize a healthy man when she saw one. Her brain was programmed to interpret kindness as weakness, consistency as lack of passion, and respect as disinterest. She was rejecting exactly what she said she was looking for. This realization changed everything. Jessica began to understand that true passion doesn't come from chaos, it comes from security, that you can only surrender completely when you know you're safe. But recognizing the pattern is only the first step. The second is much more challenging, and it's exactly what most people can't do. Here's where things get serious. Recognizing the pattern is relatively easy. Changing it is one of the hardest things you'll do in life, because you're not just changing behaviors, you're reprogramming neural circuits that were formed in your first years of life. Wayne Dyer used to say, "You cannot solve a problem with the same mentality that created it." And when we talk about relationship patterns, this is literal. You need to train your brain to recognize and value completely different things. Let me explain how this works in practice. Your brain has what neuroscientists call confirmation bias. It looks for evidence that confirms what you already believe. If you grew up believing that love is complicated, your brain will filter reality to confirm this belief. When you meet someone kind and stable, your brain interprets this as no personality. When you meet someone temperamental and unpredictable, your brain interprets it as interesting and passionate. But here's what's fascinating. You can reprogram this. Your brain is plastic, adaptable. It can learn new patterns at any age, but it needs conscious and intentional repetition. The first step is to create what I call a warning signs list. You need to train your radar to identify narcissistic behaviors right at the beginning, when it's still easy to walk away. For example, do they talk a lot about ex-partners? Always negatively, playing the victim? Warning sign. Do they bombard you with attention right at the beginning, making you feel special in an almost artificial way? Warning sign. Do they violate small boundaries, just kidding, to test your reaction? Giant red flag. The second step is even more important. You need to train your body to tolerate safety. That's right. For many people, feeling safe in a relationship causes anxiety at first. When you're used to drama, peace seems strange. When you're used to uncertainty, predictability seems boring. Your nervous system interprets safety as danger because it doesn't recognize the pattern. Remember Jessica I mentioned? She literally had to train her body to relax in David's presence. At first, she felt like creating problems just to feel the familiar adrenaline. She had to consciously remind herself, this is what safety looks like. This is normal. But there's a third step that's the most crucial of all, and it's something most people never hear about. You talk to yourself all day long. That voice in your head is always commenting, judging, analyzing. And here's something that will shock you. The way you talk to yourself determines exactly the type of person you're going to attract. If that internal voice is always criticizing you, diminishing you, saying you're not enough, you'll attract people who treat you exactly the same way. Because that's what seems familiar, that's what seems right. Wayne Dyer discovered something revolutionary. We change our relationships when we change our relationship with ourselves. It's no coincidence that people with low self-esteem attract partners who diminish them. It's a perfect mirror. Let me give you a concrete example. Robert, 35 years old, always had a brutal internal voice. You're weak. You can't do anything right. Nobody will love you if they know how you really are. This voice had been formed by a critical father who was never satisfied with anything. Robert attracted women who, coincidentally, were also never satisfied with him. They always found flaws, always made him feel inadequate, and he accepted this as normal because it was exactly how he treated himself. The turning point came when Robert began to notice this connection. He understood that it wasn't possible to have a healthy relationship with another person while having a toxic relationship with himself. But here's what's deeper. It's not enough to just think positive. You need to actively challenge the limiting beliefs that were implanted in your mind as a child. Every time you catch yourself thinking, "I'm not enough," you need to stop and question, is this true? Where does this belief come from? Is this really my voice, or is it the voice of someone who hurt me in the past? Most people carry the voices of their critics internalized. They think these are their own thoughts, but they're actually echoes of people who wounded them in the past. When you start treating yourself with kindness, with compassion, with respect, something magical happens. You stop accepting bad treatment from others because it no longer matches how you treat yourself. It's as if you create a new internal reference point. People who treat you badly start to feel strange, uncomfortable. You naturally distance yourself from them because they're no longer vibrating at your frequency. But there's something even deeper happening, something Wayne Dyer discovered about the nature of energetic attraction. Here's a truth that will change how you see relationships forever. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. More specifically, you attract people who vibrate at the same emotional frequency as you. Wayne Dyer used to say that we're like radio stations. We're always transmitting an emotional frequency. People tuned to the same frequency can pick us up clearly. People on very different frequencies don't even notice we exist. If you're vibrating at a frequency of neediness, you'll attract people who feed on neediness. If you're vibrating at a frequency of fear, you'll attract people who create drama and instability. If you're vibrating at a frequency of anger, you'll attract combative and conflictual people. But here's what's fascinating. Narcissists are experts at reading emotional frequencies. They can detect unhealed wounds from afar, like sharks smelling blood in the water. Let me tell you about Christina, 31 years old. She had ended an abusive relationship 2 years earlier and thought she was completely healed. She started dating again, but continued attracting men with narcissistic traits. "I don't understand," she told me. "I know what the signs are. I know what to look for. Why does this keep happening?" When we started investigating deeper, we discovered something interesting. Christina had healed the conscious part of the wound. She knew intellectually that she deserved to be treated well. But the unconscious part was still transmitting a frequency of, "I need to prove I'm worthy of love." This frequency was almost imperceptible to normal people, but it was like a beacon to narcissists. They could sense that underneath the apparent confidence, there was a person willing to work too hard to be loved. And here's what's most subtle. Christina wasn't doing anything wrong consciously. She wasn't being needy or desperate. But her body still carried a tension, a subtle anxiety that screamed, "Please, find me worthy." The real change began when Christina learned to relax in her own company, when she stopped trying to prove her worth and started simply inhabiting it. This meant learning to be alone without feeling needy. It meant stopping filling every free moment with distractions. It meant developing a genuine relationship with herself, not based on achievements or external approval. When her frequency changed, when she started radiating completeness instead of need, the type of person she attracted changed completely. But there's one last secret Wayne Dyer discovered. Something about the true purpose of toxic relationships in our lives. I'm going to tell you something that might sound controversial, but that changed my perspective forever. Narcissistic people enter your life to teach you something about yourself. They're distorted mirrors that reflect your unhealed wounds. Wayne Dyer believed there are no coincidences, that every person who crosses our path is there for a reason. And when we talk about toxic relationships, that reason is usually to show us where we still need to grow. This doesn't mean we should thank our abusers. This doesn't mean we should accept bad treatment. It means we can transform our pain into wisdom, our wound into healing. Think about it this way. If you always attract people who make you feel inadequate, maybe your lesson is to learn to value yourself. If you always attract people who don't respect your boundaries, maybe your lesson is to learn to impose firmer boundaries. Every toxic relationship is an opportunity to look within and ask, what is this situation trying to teach me about myself? Lucy, 45 years old, had gone through 3 marriages with narcissistic men. When we started working together, she was convinced she was unlucky. "Is there a sign on my forehead that says, 'abuse me'?" she asked. Throughout the therapeutic process, Lucy discovered that she had grown up feeling invisible. Her parents worked a lot, and she had learned that the only way to receive attention was through crises or drama. Unconsciously, she had internalized that being ignored was normal. Each narcissistic husband she attracted reflected this belief. They made her feel special at first, then ignored or diminished her. And she accepted it because, deep down, she thought she deserved only crumbs of attention. Lucy's healing didn't come from learning to identify narcissists. It came from learning to see herself, to value herself, to take up space in the world without apologizing. When she changed internally, her relationships changed externally. She began attracting people who saw her, who valued her, who were genuinely interested in getting to know her. The toxic relationship had been her teacher, a cruel teacher, but a teacher nonetheless. It had forced her to confront her deepest wound and finally heal it. Now the question you need to ask yourself is, what is the lesson your toxic relationships are trying to teach you? Because once you learn the lesson, you don't need to repeat the class anymore. We've reached the end of this journey, but actually this is just the beginning of yours, because now you have something you didn't have before: awareness. And awareness is the first step to freedom. Wayne Dyer used to say that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that's exactly what happened here. You now look at your relationship patterns with completely different eyes. You understand that attracting narcissistic people isn't bad luck. It's a reflection of unhealed wounds within you. You understand that your attachment style, formed in childhood, is still influencing your adult choices. You understand that your emotional frequency determines the type of person you attract. More importantly, you understand that you can change all of this. The path isn't easy. Reprogramming deeply rooted patterns requires patience, self-compassion, and often professional help. But it's possible. I see people making this transformation every day. Remember, you're not doomed to repeat past mistakes. Your past doesn't determine your future, your present choices do. Start small. Observe your thoughts. Question your beliefs. Treat yourself with the kindness you would offer a dear friend. Learn to be comfortable in your own company. And most importantly, be patient with yourself. Healing isn't linear. There will be relapses, moments of doubt, temptations to return to old patterns. This is normal and part of the process. What's important is to keep returning to center, returning to the commitment to love and respect yourself. Because when you truly love yourself, you don't accept crumbs from anyone. Wayne Dyer left us many lessons, but perhaps the most important is this. You have the power to create the life you want. You have the power to attract true love, genuine respect, healthy partnership. It all starts with the decision to break the pattern, to stop settling for less than you deserve, to understand that you don't need anyone to complete you. You're already complete. And when you live from this truth, when you truly embody this wisdom, something magical happens. You stop attracting people who want to use you and start attracting people who want to grow alongside you. This is your time. This is your freedom.